Hello everyone, welcome to episode 2 of reading all of the Newberys. I am excited to be diving into this episode. I'm trying to do one episode every single month. It's this and another project where I want to do one episode every single month, so I'm making sufficient process. I highly doubt I will ever do multiple episodes of this in a single month because I just think it's just too much. But we are here to talk about the Newberys of 1991. I specifically went with 1991 because it is the year that I was born, and I think probably for the next episode in July I may go a little modern. I think I'm gonna alternate back and forth. One modern, one that's not modern, and that way I'm equally distributing myself, because if you leave it to me, I'll read all of the modern awards and not any of the ones that are older, and I will frustrate myself doing that, because when I get to the point where I'm like, oh, I don't have anything that's newer for me to read, and the older ones I think will be a little bit more difficult for me to make it through. But this is going to be a short vlog for a couple of different reasons. I did not realize that in 1991 there were only 2 books. There were 2 books, just 2 books, that's it. 2 books that came out as a winner and an honor, and so the winner was Maniac, McGee by Jerry Spinelli, which surprisingly I've never read this. I'm shocked. And then we have The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. This one I have definitely heard of the author Avi. I'm not sure which one is the right way. I'm sorry. This one is a historical fiction, takes place during the summer of 1832. And so she is sailing this ship, and there's a lot of different things that happen. So don't know much about this one. This one feels more of a contemporary read. So this main character wasn't born Maniac McGee. His name is Jeffrey Lionel McGee, but when his parents died, he became a legend. His name changed, he became a legend. Even today, kids talk about how fast he could run, how he hid it inside the park frog Homer, and how no matter how snarled, would stay that way once he begun to untie it. Little girls jumping rope chant, Maniac, Maniac, he's so cool, Maniac, Maniac, don't go to school, runs all night, runs all right, Maniac, Maniac, kiss the bull. But the thing Maniac McGee is best known for is what he did for the kids from the east side and those from the west side. He was special, alright, and this is his story. Oh, okay. This sounds really interesting. Okay, so both of these books are relatively short. Maniac McGee comes in at 184 pages, and The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle comes in without the extra notations in the back with the appendix. It comes in at 210. So these are not long. I don't expect this vlog to be really long. I'm starting on a Sunday, hoping to get it up on a Thursday. So 3 days. No, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, kind of. So 3 or 4-ish days, and I'm also doing my weekly vlog at the same time. I think that what I'm going to do, since tonight is Sunday, I'm going to try to go ahead and knock out 80 or so pages of The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. Maybe if I try to get to chapter 10. So reading 1 to chapter 10 and seeing how I feel, and then we will go from there. But I just wanted to open up introductions for this, and I will check in with y'all as soon as I have another update. Hello. Okay, we are here with our first update, which is going to be like, to be quite honest with you, this will probably be the second to last update. There might be some B-roll footage, but I think that this is going to be like, it literally, this vlog only called for like 2 or 3 updates, to be quite honest, because it's only 2 books. This is one of the shorter lists, and I didn't feel the need to kind of break up the content too much. So I did end up finishing Maniac, McGee, which is the Newbery winner of 91. I could do a think piece on this book. I'm not too sure when I originally did this intro if I gave you a synopsis of this book, but essentially we're following a main character who is supposedly a legend. Maniac McGee, he's known for running. He pops into this town, and then, you know, his story has basically lived on. Now, Maniac McGee is white. He comes from a pretty traumatic background, and he finds himself, I can't remember if it's on the east side or the west side that he finds himself on. I think it's the east side that he finds himself in. That's where he finds himself. I'm pretty sure it's the east side. And it is a clear racial divide, right? So the east side is predominantly black, not predominantly, it's all black. West side is all white. And so Maniac McGee comes into the all black side of town and is shocked as to why people see color. So there's error number 1, and I did mark some pages in here. Is this the one? Oh, I'm going to read you this paragraph where he says, "For the life of him, he couldn't figure out why these East Enders called themselves black. He kept looking and looking, and the colors he found were ginger snap and light fudge and dark fudge and acorn and butter rum and cinnamon and burnt orange, but never licorice, which to him was real black." When going back and reading older materials, right, it is of nature. It's of nature. When I say of nature, I mean that it's not unusual to call out the problematic aspects of a book, correct? Right? That is a thing. I think that this was written during a time in which Jerry Spinelli may have assumed that he was doing some good with introducing a character that was quote unquote colorblind and didn't see black people for the color of their skin, more so just who they were. And here's the thing. I think that there is some good from seeing people as people, right? But the error, I think, that comes with that narrative, the piece that gets left out, is that you can't overlook the issues that community has faced, right? It doesn't erase the systemic issues that have existed. And so that's one of those, the whole, I'm colorblind, which I don't even like that term, to be honest with you. The I don't see color, that's how I prefer to phrase it. The I don't see color narrative is a slippery slope, and some people feel like they have the best of intentions in using that terminology, but don't understand how detrimental that can be, right? Because when you say that you don't see color, you're not seeing that person, and you're not acknowledging what they've are dealing with, what they've had to overcome, the systems that are designed and set up that directly impact those individuals. And so you don't see the whole version of them. And I think that teaching kids not to see color it's dangerous, right? I think that is a very tricky thing to do, because you want kids to be empathetic. You want them to get to know people for who they are at their core, but I also think it's important for kids to acknowledge the experiences of other. And sometimes I feel like that term is used in a way that does not acknowledge those experiences. It pushes those experiences under the rug. It's such a complex idea, I think, that requires a lot of nuance. But that for me was very striking, to create a middle grade age character that does not see color, that comes in and effectively is postured as a white savior. That's hard. That's hard to reckon with. That's hard to read in 2025 and not attempt to dissect it completely from a 2025 lens, right? Acknowledging that this is a book that is as old as me. I turned 34 this year, right? This book would have been published in 1990 because it won the 1991 Newbery medal, so it would have been published the previous year. So it is, in fact, technically it is older than me. So we're talking about a book that's 30 plus years old. It is a product of its time, and it was difficult to make it through this book. I think that and I'm gonna read you another part that I think is indicative of some feelings that I had in regard to it. I don't think that the Black characters in this are characterized very well. A good portion of them don't even have names. There is a specific scene in which I think a Black body is put into a dangerous situation when an East Ender is taken to the West End, and this was a very difficult read, right? Because you can see some of the intention of, I want kids to see past differences and to get along, but in how this was executed, I feel like it lays the ground for a very dangerous narrative with someone who may have the best intentions, and that's not what I was anticipating when I picked this book up. I literally knew nothing about Maniac McGee, and it's amazing because this won the Newbery medal, and that says a lot about what my experience is going to be like going forward. It's gonna be tough. It's not going to be fun. I think that when I get through some of these older titles, it's going to be very difficult. It makes you question, who was sitting on these committees when these books were published, right? ALA has had to work hard, and they're still working on it because they're definitely not perfect. They've had to work hard on making sure that their representation in terms of who's serving on their committees and who are the loudest voices in the room are representative or are indicative of librarianship across this nation, and it hasn't always been that way. And so then you start to think who's on the committee during this time? Then you have to think about what was seen as socially acceptable at this time. There's books like this, going into books like this, it's so easy to write them off because of the lens in which we're reading it now, but you kind of have to pull back and think a little bit too about what was happening during that time. This is a book that I think a lot of people would have found socially acceptable. I think now it's I found a really good piece, which if I can find it again, I should have saved the link, right? Of course I didn't. But if you do get the chance, if I do find the link, I will share it down below. And I read it, and I can't remember if this person was a librarian or not, but they talked about how much they loved Maniac McGee growing up, right? And then reading it again as an adult, it was oh, wow. Not great, right? Not great at all. Some scenes in here are really just, they're mind-boggling. The Black characterization, I think, is what really kind of threw me off, because they very much so were caricatures. They were not fully fleshed out. They were not fully developed, except for one side character that we have, that Maniac McGee meets very, very early on. This novel, though short, is one that I think is a great teaching tool if someone is teaching courses about children's literature, about the progression of children's literature. This is a good example of where we were 30 years ago and what was deemed as the best, like the best of the best in children's literature of its year, right? This was considered the best children's book of 1990 to get the 1991 Newbery medal. And to read this now in 2025 and kind of have a lot more knowledge, it's like wow. It's very much so night and day. And I'm telling y'all now, like I was not anticipating that. But there was another section that really, where the white savior complex kind of came in, and I was like, okay, this is very fascinating. There was a section in which, like, Maniac McGee was trying to unravel a thread that was part of this competition at this pizza place, and whoever was able to untie the knot in the thread was going to win a year supply of large pizzas. And it was it was very interesting because in this section he specifically talks about how he is unraveling this knot, and people, not only kids but grown-ups too, black and white, because Cobble's Corner was on Hector and word was racing through the neighborhood on both the east and west sides of the street. What people saw they didn't believe. The knot had grown, swelled, exploded. It was a fizzy globe. The newspaper the next day described it as a gigantic hairball. Like, it almost was this this metaphor. This knot was a metaphor for the chaos that existed. I don't know why I have this thing in here. It's my child's postcard and I was using it as a bookmark. It was interesting because I feel like it was very much so this metaphor for the chaos that was the East and West End and their interactions with each other. And Maniac McGee was the one who was unraveling it, and that tension that existed between the two, he was easing that tension. And I'm like, but what was funny is that easing that tension and the majority of the book took place in the East End, where the black community was located. I don't know. I felt like there was a black mother. The side character that I was talking about, eventually Maniac McGee does make it into her household, which how that happened also just didn't read like well to me. But the mother in this family gave me mammy vibes. If you don't know what that means in terms of like literature or film, I highly recommend looking it up. And disturbing. Very disturbing. And I think that there are some people today who would read this book and not necessarily pick up on it, but I think that in my experience with children's literature and seeing kind of the changes that have made, this was just a hell of an interesting read. I think I'm going to leave this one unrated. I think that with these older ones, it's going to be hard for me to come up with a rating because of a plethora of different things. Like, I wouldn't even know where to rate this, right? This story was interesting. I mean, it wasn't super engaging. I like Jerry Spinelli's writing. Like, this is not my first time reading Jerry Spinelli, but this was not it for me. This was not it for me. So that, I know that was a lot, but I knew that when I started that one, by the time I got about 25% into that one, I said, oh, I'm going to have a lot of thoughts. Thoughts shall be had about that book, because I was not a happy camper. So that leaves the Newbery honor for that year, The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. I am probably going to knock this one out relatively quick, and then when I am finished with this one, I will check in and we will go ahead and wrap this vlog up. Oh, child, this is, I mean, for 2 books, I feel like this is a lot. This has been a whole thing. a quick update on reading the True Confessions of Miss Charlotte Doyle. I always forget the full names of books. I can never just remember names in their entirety. I don't know why. But I am almost finished with it, not quite. And so far, let me tell you, it's an interesting book, right? So we are following main character Charlotte. She's pretty stuck up. She's pretty pretentious. She plays heavily into class roles, right? So she's sent on this voyage by her parents, and she's supposed to sail across the Atlantic. And she immediately, when she gets on the ship, she is talking about like standards of what a lady is supposed to do, and you are like beneath me, you shouldn't be talking to me in this way. And so being in her head and hearing that narrative is quite hard. I must admit that it is not easy having to listen to her, like the way in which she processes everyone's roles. But I do think that in terms of class systems being we still have class systems today, but in terms of a child being conditioned to believe in certain class systems, I do think it does ultimately fit that perfectly, how a child would think and act if they were conditioned to believe that they hold a certain status that other people don't. So when she gets on this ship, she quickly finds out that the crew is not a fan of the captain, and she makes a friend. Is his name Zachariah? I can't remember. It's an older black gentleman who she makes friends with. Now, once again, this book was written in 1990, and so how he's characterized, like, I'm not a huge fan of it at all. And he's super friendly to her, tries to kind of give her the heads up on what's going on, like, hey, I need you to make sure like you keep a knife under your bed at all times. There's particular reasons for that, and just all around a nice human. I think that this plays into like the magical Negro trope, where we have a black character that is being used or suffers misfortune for the progression of the main white character. And so I think that seeing that trope is super unfortunate, because I can kind of see where this book is going in terms of its pushback against gender roles, gender expectations, and maybe even some pushback against the class system. But unfortunately, like, once again, I always say, like, with these older books, you can read them, you can appreciate them, but they are also worthy of criticism, just like any other book. You know, identifying that these books are a product of their time, right? I kind of expected it in some of the like older ones, but maybe not the ones from 90. Well, the year is 91, but the book was published in 1990. So I guess I knew that it was going to be a problem, but I don't think I was expecting it to be as much of a common thread as it is, especially within the context of these two books. But to be honest with you, I do find it interesting because, you know, they were planning this mutiny because this guy has been awful, has been complete trash to them. And she built this relationship with the captain, and she looked at him in the same way that she looked at her father, right? She constantly says, oh, he reminds me of my father. Like the way that he handles himself, the way that he talks, the way that he addresses her. And once again, that's falling into that class system. He's better than everybody else. He reminds me of my dad. And so this is the person that I should be building a relationship with. But it's clear in one specific scene, which I'm not going to go into because I do think that it is spoilers. It is clear in one scene that I'm on right now, in this specific scene, that things are going to change drastically because of the relationship that she starts to grow with the crew. Because there's moments where she begins to get to know them, she reads to them, they tell her stories. So there's this exchanging of ideas and experiences that she hasn't had. And so she begins to humanize the very people that I think in the beginning of the book she's looking down upon. And so when this moment comes where she should be showing her loyalty to the captain by her own standard of who is not, I don't want to say who is good, but who is worthy of that respect and treatment. When we get to the height of that point, she starts to see, like, I don't know if the captain really is a good guy. I'm not sure that he's a good guy. So we are at that point. I'm just going to go ahead and finish it. And then when I finish, I'll check back in and we will do the closing clip for this vlog. Hey y'all, so we did, what's going on here? Oh, I was supposed to say, what's going on? We did it. We finished The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. That had a slight little plot twist in it that I was not expecting, but still everything that I kind of said before about this book challenging gender norms, gender roles, but also talking a little bit about class. I do think that it did better addressing gender norms as opposed to class because of some things that happened toward the end. But it was interesting seeing Charlotte develop into this character that was definitely in complete opposition of what her parents expected of her as a young woman. She's 13 in this book, which also makes me think, like, is this book truly, like we say, like children's, but also I think that this is also kind of one of those books that waffles between children and teen. I think it would appeal to a lower teen audience. There are some things that really just don't age well, which I talked about a little bit earlier, but I think as I get into these older ones, and I'm going to go back and forth between newer and older, just because I want to make sure I'm doing it in a way that's more equitable, meaning that I'm not just hyperfixating on the newer titles and not going back and then completely just avoiding doing the older ones, because then it's going to be difficult for me. So I think doing one versus the other, I think that would be really, really good. So I don't know what to rate this one. I think that if anything to be said, it's about a 3-star read for me, right? I left Maniac McGee unrated because it's hard for me to give that a rating considering all of the criticism that I had of it. And I think that if I was to put a star rating on that one, it would be rather low. And I'm trying to really think about these things in a constructive lens, in a nuanced lens, and recognizing that these are books of their time and they may not necessarily always hold up well when reading them through a lens from the year 2025. You know, it's super different, right? I mean, these books, this 35 years ago, these books are not going to hold up. And I think like the older copies, the older award winners that I get into, the more I'm going to start seeing these same exact themes. It kind of makes you think about this whole concept of people writing outside of their lived experience, even when creating side characters, because unless research is done or you're talking to that specific group, it's easy to fall into stereotypes, right? Even in here, the well intentions of our side character still end up falling into some disappointing tropes. He is the catalyst for her growth. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that's unfortunate because like I do like Zachariah as a character, but his purpose is simply to foster the growth and development of her as a character, and that's a hard thing to kind of deal with when there's no other reason for him to exist as a character. And it was one of those things too when I was reading this where they kept referring to him like as that black character. And granted, this is like, what is it, early 19th century, so it is super obvious, but I don't think it was always done in a way that was that captured that time period, and so it was just jarring it was jarring reading those things. But for both of them, for them both being 35 years old, I do think that ease of reading is something that I didn't necessarily expect. I do read older stuff, but I mean, we're going to be diving back into books that are 40, 50, 60 years old, right? And because the Newbery is over 100 years old at this point, it's sometimes it does shock me, because I think that's the reason why, like, a lot of people have these misconceptions about older books, is that the way in which they're written may not be as accessible to what we're used to seeing now, and that's definitely not true of either one of these. I do think that these are both super accessible. I don't know, like, if I was to have to recommend these to any kid nowadays, I don't really know who I would give these to. I definitely see these being read by educators, librarians, students who are, you know, becoming educators or becoming librarians, or maybe English majors that have to read these books. But I guess, like, if a kid likes adventure, this would be a good one. Maniac McGee is just one of those ones where I'm like, I cannot in good faith. I just don't know who I would recommend that book to. But so that was, I mean, this was an easier one because it was only 2 books. But what we're going to do in next month's version is we're going to go newer again. My lights just flashed. I think my power's about to go out. Joy. They've been flashing off and on because it's storming, which, thank goodness, because it's been so freaking hot here. I immediately I need it for it to storm, so it can cool down a little bit. So yeah, next go around we're gonna do 2019. It was the year that my daughter was born, and because this time I did the year I was born, which is 91, so we're going to do 2019. And if I'm not mistaken, 2019 is a pretty hefty list. Let's take a quick peek. I should have had this prepared, but I'm never prepared. I always think of stuff as I'm in the moment, and then I'm like, oh gosh, I probably should have had that. Okay, so let's see here. In 2019, the winner was Mercy Suarez Changes Gears, which is by Meg Medina. Excited for that. Then the honor titles were The Night Diary, which I'm excited for that one. And that is about the partition of India, if I'm not mistaken. And then the third one is The Book of Boy, which is not one that I am familiar with. Okay, so only 3 books for this next one too, but that's okay. That is perfectly fine. 3 books is great. I know some of the lists are going to be long and some of the lists are going to be short. It's going to vary, but that's it, y'all. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. If you're looking to follow me on social media or support this channel anyway, all those links will be down in the description box below. And I will be back with another video soon.